Test. Can you hear me? Maybe sit in the chair. Test. Ha! How about that? Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. We'll go ahead and get started. I know we're a few minutes behind, but appreciate everybody being here. And we got a couple members here in person, Chairman Powell and Gary Richardson from the Augusta area is with us. And we do have Representative Misha Maynor, I know, is online. And we may have one or two others either joining in person or online, but we have three members who are with us either virtually or in person this morning. I'm going to ask Gary, if you don't mind, open us up in prayer.
If you would, bow with me. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this morning. We thanking you and praising you, Lord, for who you are. Lord, we just ask you for wisdom and guidance and direction in all we do. May we take the information that we hear and make the decisions that are pleasing and that are for the good of the citizens. Lord, we lift up the community in Broward County, and Lord, we just, as they go through this healing process, we ask you to just keep your arms around them, and Lord, we just with comfort, we ask for peace for them. Lord, in all these things I pray. Amen.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Gary Richardson, Vice Chairman of the committee. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here this morning. We will go ahead and get started shortly, but I do want to just make a couple brief comments about last week. I know many of you were able to join us, but it was certainly an interesting meeting. I know Representative Richardson was there in Oconee County with us, and I know many of you all here in the audience. Chairman Powell had a commitment back home. He was on Zoom there for the first hour, but it was certainly interesting, I thought, from my perspective, and Gary, if you have any comments as well, but I think we realized how much of a challenge we have with this issue, but last week certainly highlighted it to an even greater extent, that we do have a lot of challenges, particularly in our schools, and we're going to hear a little bit more of that. We're going to finish up some of the school presentations this morning, including from the Department of Education, who we heard from some last week, and we're going to hear from a student, which I'm excited about this morning as well. But it was eye-opening, to say the least, in my opinion, and looking forward to this morning, where we're going to, again, continue here a little bit more about the education piece, but we're also going to talk a lot about the regulation piece. We got the Department of Revenue with us this morning, as well as some folks from the Sheriff's Association, the CHAMPS program, as well as a school resource officer, which I'm really excited to hear from Mr. Higginbotham. And then we have several other presenters that are actually in the vaping industry that will be interesting to hear from as well. So we'll go ahead and get started and call on Justin Hill and Mark Muma from the Department of Education, if y'all want to come on up to the podium and kick us off.
I'd be glad to. Morning, Chairman Gaines, committee members. Justin Hill, Associate Superintendent for the Georgia Department of Education and the Office of Whole Child Supports. In our office, we have three divisions. One is school safety, one is student health and wellness, and the third office deals with school climate. And joining me is Mark Muma, and he's the head of our school safety team. Kind of recapping, last week we heard from a school principal giving you the day-to-day perspective of what they're dealing with vaping, and we heard from another individual that was certainly talking about the regional impact, certainly in Southwest and Southeast Georgia. Today we're going to let you know what the agency is doing about it, and also some of the grant money that's been allocated to help schools combat this. As a recap, last, I think June of 23, we heard from those testimonies from last week, and we put out a survey and started asking school principals how big a problem is vaping in your schools. It would help equip us with how we want to respond in the immediate sense and then more long-term. And almost 70 districts participated. And if you think about the day-to-day life of a school principal and the teachers and administrative staff, they're there to really make sure teaching and learning and safety is taking place. But unfortunately, vaping has become an all too real thing that they're dealing with day to day. And 54% said they either deal with it on a multiple times a day or at least once a day. And that's a huge amount of effort from school staff to deal with those things rather than other things they should be dealing with. Nicotine vapes, of course, leads the concern, according to the principals. Cannabinoid, CBD vapes, THC, certainly is number 3, and then fentanyl use is number 4. And we've had, unfortunately, a few cases in Georgia where we've had young people that have went to the emergency room, and then some reports of deaths. Strategies that the principals are really employing immediately are vape detectors. And Mark's going to go over some expenditures with different school grants from the feds and the state of how much money is being leveraged against that. But vape detectors is number 1. The number 2 response has typically been a stricter student discipline consequence. And in one district, the proposals to have it's almost like Field of Dreams came on yesterday. If you make one alternative school, well, what if I just build another one? Well, those are filling up too. So that's not a great response. We want to think about prevention. And then, of course, number 3 is student education. Every year we have a Georgia Student Health Survey, and we ask all of our students in Georgia, do you vape? How often do you vape? And that's about almost 3% of the students self-report. It's underreporting because most students don't want to admit that they're doing this. They think their school is tracking their anonymous survey. But that equates to about 25,000 students saying that they have at least 1 day to 20 days of use, and that's a lot. But if you look at another study, and since we were in the backyard of UGA last week, they have a study that says maybe 11% of high school students, they project, have some usage within the past 30 days. Now, we have about 540,000 high school students in Georgia. So if 11% are vaping, that's about 59,000. Now, nearby Bobby Dodd Stadium, that's basically the entire stadium, seats, plus the football field. That's Georgia students who have problems with vaping. That's
only if they're playing Georgia. Otherwise, they don't have a full crowd.
Well said. Well said. I'm an SEC fan myself. So, so student discipline reporting, we've added vaping as a specific targeted category in the student discipline code, but that was added in 2019. You might want to ask, how many discipline events are we seeing related to vaping? That is, those are the ones we catch. And that's the ones we catch. So the numbers are, if you look out in the count, we're about 20,000 for last year. We had in 2021, this is post-COVID. So it's hovering around an average of about 20,000 incidents. Well, that equates to the discipline counts that you see for in-school suspension assignments for being caught with those things. That's 8,000. In-school suspension days, or almost 8,500. Out-of-school suspension, and I just really want to focus on that. That's 12,268 out-of-school suspension days. Now, that's a lot for vaping. So what does that really mean? Well, there's an impact to learning. There's not only an impact to safety and school operations, because again, schools are designed to deliver instruction and to make sure our students are learning in a safe environment. If they're spending all their time dealing with vaping incidents, they're not dealing with those things. But that means 92,000 lost instructional hours cumulatively, or 1,272 days of school, and that's a lot. Impact to learning. There's a UC Davis health report that came out last year, and it's not really a surprise, but kids that tend to vape, use tobacco and cannabis, they have a higher rate of absenteeism. And then across the country post-COVID, we have a huge chronic absenteeism problem. Before COVID, it was about 9%. Now it hovers above 20%. And vaping is contributing to that to some degree. And of course, they have lower grades. All right, so this is just a snapshot. I think we're convinced that vaping is a problem. The Department of Education, we don't stand alone in this. We share the burden of trying to address this, and we appreciate the committee standing up because we feel like we're all partners in this. But specifically, what is the department doing about it? Well, one thing we're doing, in fact, Monday, and the committee is invited to the filming, we're doing our first public service announcement with Georgia Public Broadcasting so we can actually film and start a really campaign, because awareness is a huge thing. So filming takes place Monday. I'm certainly going to be there. Look forward to seeing how that goes down, and that's our first PSA, and we certainly want to have another one on vaping and then a third one on fentanyl use specifically. The other thing is teachers want lesson plans. Vaping is in the health standards, that the most recent health standards that we have. But teachers are like, well, we see this as a problem. How do we address this in our classrooms? So we've really partnered with folks to help us design lesson plans so that at all levels, these are just examples for middle and high school, but we also have them for K2 and grades 3 through 5. Because the awareness campaign, again, imagine we're doing lesson plans on vaping, we should be doing lesson plans on literacy. Also, podcasts. We started a podcast during COVID called Classroom Conversations, where we bring GPB studios to classrooms for Georgia teachers to share their best practices. But we're also going to do and we have at least each episode 1,000 folks listening to other teachers, talk to other teachers about what's happening and how to make their schools and classrooms better. Well, we're also going to do one on vaping. And along with that, some parent guides, because schools are asking us for resources all the time. Help us communicate with parents about the dangers of vaping. Help us communicate with parents that they should quit as well. So this is a huge problem. And with that, I'm going to stop and let Mark Muma go over some of the financial allocations that we've done through federal grants and some state grants, as well as some other resources. Mark?
Yeah, well, thank you, Justin, and thank you for having me here this morning. As Justin mentioned, I'm Mark Muma. I'm with the School Safety Program for the Georgia Department of Education, and really kind of starting last year, these were some of the things and these were some of the questions that we were being asked across the state. So, as you mentioned, the health standards, really kind of relating this back to some of the curriculum and some of the lesson plans that are already in place, and really trying to channel and funnel some of our information regarding vaping into the health standards and into the hands of our health and PE teachers. We've also partnered with the Georgia Department of Public Health. They have a Ready to Quit campaign, and as a matter of fact, I'll share with you in a few minutes some of the efforts that we've put forth at the Regional Educational Service Agencies, the RESAs across our state, in which DPH actually came with us and helped facilitate a session really talking about the health impacts, not only from a student discipline and student safety perspective, but really looking at the health impacts that vaping has. And then really looking at a lot of the federal resources that we have available. And that's what we really decided to do, is put together a resource guide that captured all of this information. So we have shared that across the state now, but it looked at both state and federal resources, as well as nonprofits and 501(c)(3)s that have some resources available for the students, available for the parents to help educate them. As Justin mentioned, there have been a lot of grant programs. We've been very fortunate, certainly, through your dedication and with the movement forward with a lot of the school safety fundings for the state. But last year, we also received the United States Stronger Connections Grant. That was a little over $32 million, and it was a competitive process in which schools could apply. We reviewed each of those applications and awarded over $30 million. And as you can see, in round one, we had 9 districts and 1 charter school that actually did apply and were awarded funding for a total of over $590,000 to implement these practices, to move forward with vape detectors, move forward with quit campaigns and cessation programs. In round 2, we had another 4 districts who came forward and were seeking help. So again, we were happy to allocate another $181,000 in that program for a total of a little over $770,000. This Stronger Connections Grant also included anything and everything related to school safety. So it could have been personnel, it could have been mental health, it could have been training and development, or equipment and supplies, and they really chose to focus in on vaping as one of their strategies, as one of their top challenges. Again, through your generosity, one of the things that we moved forward with last year in fiscal year 24, if you remember that each public school received $50,000 to implement school safety strategies. And of that $50,000 for each public school, we did have a huge response. We had over 14 districts and 1 state specialty school that chose to implement vaping programs, and multiple schools within each district. So a total of a little over $1.6 million were spent from those districts in order to implement vape detectors for intervention programs for substance abuse counseling. So they did use the funds, but obviously as they used the funds on vaping, that took away from some of the physical security strategies that they could have implemented. Moving forward, again, this year, we are very happy and we're very appreciative of the funding that is, again, being supplied to our public schools. And what we did ask is that we include some new options. And so we were really, really pleased to include school resource officers and personnel in this year's funding. But we're also really happy and appreciative of the fact that we got to include mental health supports, substance abuse and counseling, as well as vaping programs within this funding. So we do expect that school systems will be using it again. But really moving forward, how is it that we can best serve them? What are the challenges that they're dealing with? As I mentioned from the regional workshops, this was really eye-opening for us. We went to 3 different RESAs. We have planned more for this school year as well. And this was really a collaboration between our school nurse program, school safety. We had the Department of Public Health and our student discipline piece, because as you can imagine, this is really impacting the whole child. This is impacting the school environment as a whole. So thinking about the health issues, thinking about the student discipline path, the criminal charges that are associated with vaping. So what we really wanted to do is bring people together to find some common sense solutions, and we were really happy to have each session of these full. We were able to reach over 150 district leaders, and as we went through our educational process, what we decided to do is kind of stop, and as we shared the information about the impacts on our health and on our discipline processes, we wanted to hear from them. So half of the session was really dedicated to getting different counties together, having them discuss what strategies have worked for them, what they need help with, how they have addressed it in the past, and really what is it that they can do to help intervene for that child who really is asking for help. So we had a lot of great feedback. Again, a very popular session, and we plan more for the future. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Justin, or if there's any questions.
Yeah, I'd love to field any questions that you may have.
Any questions from either members? It's really, really helpful information, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you all being here. And thanks for coming last week as well.
Thank you for the opportunity. The schools really need your help. Trust me.
Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. We are going to ask Sharmata to come on up. She's a student in Forsyth. Is that correct? We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Representative Gaines, for the work that you have provided on House Bill 1260 and for chairing the study committee. Also, thank you to the committee members who have dedicated their time to this important topic and providing me with the opportunity to speak today. My name is Sharmata Venkatramani, and I'm a student at South Forsyth High School. As a high school student, I am deeply concerned about the alarming rate at which my peers are becoming addicted to vapor products. The lack of regulation by the FDA has created a dangerous environment where an influx of bad actors in the industry have targeted children and teenagers through enticing flavors and discreet, affordable devices. The introduction of fruity flavors and disposable products has made vaping more appealing, easier, and more accessible for young people. These tactics deliberately target kids, exploiting their curiosity. The discreet designs of these products allow for easy concealment, further complicating efforts to address the problem. As someone who works with a lot of prevention specialists, I can tell you that by the time kids reach high school, many have become addicted for years to these products and chemicals, which are flavored, illegal, and dangerous. The widespread availability of these items, either on store shelves, through social networks, or online with the help of social media influence, has created a false sense of legitimacy. If you speak with students, teachers, school resource officers, and parents, it shouldn't come as a surprise that data from the National Youth Tobacco Survey indicates that illegal vapes have grown by 125% in popularity since 2020. And in my county alone, data shows that 85% of students caught with drug usage are caught with THC vapes. And in fact, that age of usage for middle school students has gone down to 11 years old. But thanks to the work of many teachers, parents, and school resource officers, the year-over-year numbers reported show a slight decline in the use of high schoolers, but we are still seeing the same increase when it comes to usage through middle school students. Unfortunately, in addition, the illegal market is not slowing down as fresh inventory continues to be produced with new flavors, and designs are becoming more affordable and discreet as well. Our laws should be effective in the enforcement of something illegal. They should address the facts that the most popular brands reported in the survey data are illegal to be sold in the United States. They should provide enforcement against the reality that the illegal elf bars have retained the top spot for the second year in a row among teenagers, despite the fact that they are not regulated by the FDA. Most kids and even adults assume that these products are legitimate because they're so easy to obtain, but the reality is far more concerning. The fact is that we don't know what is in many of these disposable flavored products, and most of them are imported from countries like China. The need for a state registry is crucial for addressing this issue. The FDA has failed to control this industry and has allowed predatory products and black markets to take advantage of my peers and those who are even younger. In fact, last year, we had 2 fentanyl overdoses from vaping, and many states have addressed these illegal products through established state vapor directories and provided clear guidance for retailers about the status of the products that they sell, while also providing adequate enforcement measures. By establishing a state vapor registry, we can begin to regain control over the ill-intentioned products that are ruining the lives of kids across our state. Our school resource officers can focus on safety in schools rather than disciplinary measures for kids who are caught vaping. We can establish clear guidelines for retailers and effective tools for law enforcement to combat this growing epidemic. This is vital for creating healthier generations, and it's vital for making sure our schools are safe. And if anyone would like, I have data from my county that shows the really scary statistics on middle school vaping as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And what grade are you in?
I'm a junior.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, and really great testimony. And one of the comments you made I found to be very interesting as well was that we talked about during session, Chairman Powell will remember, but Elf Bar being the #1 selling product, and it's illegal. So thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. We will now hear from Dana Thompson and Laura Brackey. Are y'all coming together or separate? Together? American Lung Association, American Heart Association. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and committee members. My name is Dana Thompson. I'm with the Director of Advocacy with the American Lung Association. And I come here today in that role, but also as a mother of 4, 3 of which are teens and preteens. And appreciate you listening to what we have to say today. Let's see. Today's threats to lung health include what the U.S. Surgeon General has called a youth vaping epidemic. We are moving swiftly to bring medical expertise to the conversation, create new programs for teens and schools, and advocate for state and federal regulation to help people end their addiction to vaping. E-cigarettes are a relatively new product that showed up in the U.S. marketplace around 2007. Today's rapidly evolving e-cigarette market includes many varieties of disposable e-cigarettes. The latest e-cigarettes also contain some of the highest nicotine levels ever seen in tobacco products. While some claim to be tobacco-free, made with lab-created synthetic nicotine or nicotine that doesn't come from tobacco, synthetic nicotine products still contain nicotine. This month, the CDC released the National Youth Tobacco Survey showing a slight decline in the use of e-cigarettes among middle and high school students. While e-cigarettes have declined considerably since 2019, there is still work to be done, with an estimated 1.6 million middle and high school students using e-cigarettes. It is also deeply troubling that the youth who vape, more than a quarter of them, 26%, show a high addiction rate. Flavors in tobacco products have one purpose: to attract kids. Over 87% of youth who vape reported using flavored products, including mint and menthol. It's not only the user taking in these harmful chemicals, e-cigarettes emissions contain nicotine, ultrafine particles, and low levels of toxins that are known to cause cancer. Children are particularly vulnerable because they're developing lungs. Nicotine is always harmful to the adolescent brain. According to the CDC, in 2019, the largest tobacco companies spent $8.2 billion marketing cigarettes and smokeless tobacco in the U.S. This amount translates to 22.5 million each day, or nearly a million every hour. Each day, more than 1,200 kids under 18 try their first cigarette, 60 become new regular daily smokers, and similarly, 4,000 kids under 18 try nicotine vapes each day. Talking about federal regulation, under the Family Smoking Prevention and Tobacco Control Act that passed in 2009, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, was given authority over cigarettes and smokeless tobacco products. In 2016, the FDA asserted its authority over e-cigarette products. Therefore, in order to legally market a new tobacco product in the U.S., a company must receive a written marketing order from the FDA. A pre-market tobacco product application, also known as PMTA, can be submitted by any person for a new tobacco product seeking this order. With its pre-market review authority, the FDA acts as a gatekeeper to the marketplace. Notably, with the PMTA, the manufacturer must show an introduction of a new product that would be appropriate for the protection of public health, taking into account the risks and benefits of the population as a whole, including users and non-users of the tobacco product. On March 28, 2004, so earlier this year, the FDA launched a searchable tobacco products database, which is a list of tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, that may be legally marketed in the United States. The database is designed to serve the public, especially retailers, by providing this key information on single location with easy-to-use search capabilities. The database is supposed to be updated monthly. To date, the FDA has authorized 34 tobacco and menthol-flavored e-cigarette products and devices. At the time of the launch, the database contained nearly 17,000 tobacco products pending review. The FDA explicitly stated, along with the announcement of this new database, that pending PMTA applications do not create a safe harbor to sell the products. I also want to note that the FDA has not approved any e-cigarettes as a quit smoking aid, as has been mentioned in previous meetings, as many of the industry like to claim. But the reality is, over 58% of young adults who currently use e-cigarettes had never smoked a cigarette. The American Lung Association's 22nd Annual State of the Tobacco Control Report evaluates states and the federal government's actions to eliminate the nation's leading cause of preventable death, tobacco use, and to save lives with proven, effective, and urgently needed tobacco control laws and policies. This report provides a blueprint for the federal government and states to follow to prevent and reduce tobacco use. Unfortunately, once again, Georgia received all F grades. The adult smoking rate is above the national average in Georgia, and it's estimated that $3.2 billion annual productivity costs are attributed to smoking amongst adults in Georgia. In the interest of time, we won't go into each of these grades today, but we do want to highlight a few areas where Georgia policymakers could act on to reduce the impact of tobacco use.
Hello, I'm Laura Bracey. I'm the Government Relations Director for the American Heart Association. Now, the Heart Association's mission is to be a relentless force for longer, healthier lives, and that is why I'm here today, to talk about how we can support the health and well-being of our youth, which was so evident that each of you and all of the presenters from last week care a great deal about. So let's dive into how do we do this? Tobacco tax. Georgia has the second lowest tobacco tax in the country at 37 cents. Currently, the average tobacco tax across our country is $1.96 per pack. Increasing taxes on tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, is a win-win proposition. A significant increase would result in fewer kids initiating, more adults quitting, and provide substantial revenue for the state of Georgia, as well as cost reductions from illness. According to the Office on Smoking and Health, increasing the price of products is the single most effective way to reduce consumption, and youth are especially susceptible to price increases, as you can imagine. We've talked a little bit about flavors, and given the key role that flavors play in getting and keeping people addicted to tobacco products, and the slow pace of the federal government on this topic, this is a new grade that's been added to the State of Tobacco Control Report, which evaluates states on whether they have prohibited the sale of all flavored tobacco products. Flavored products are driving youth use. As mentioned, 87% of youth e-cigarette users are using flavored products. And with flavors like Candy King, Raz Jazz, Slushy, and Juicy, can you blame them? Just as a note, ironically, the city of Watkinsville that hosted the first meeting of the study committee has an ordinance prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco products. Now, tobacco control funding. We strongly support funding state tobacco prevention and quitting programs at levels recommended by the Centers for Disease Control. Currently, our state funds tobacco prevention at just 4% of the CDC recommended level. By getting closer to the CDC recommended level, including maybe the $1 million that we're saying the vape registry would cost, we would invest in much needed education and awareness across the state so that our youth are aware of the dangers of vaping. A comprehensive tobacco retail license allows states to regulate all tobacco retailers, fund enforcement programs, and create a penalty structure that suspends or revokes a license for retailers that sell products to youth. We've heard a lot about this access that youth have. Georgia does have a tobacco retail license that every retailer selling tobacco products is required to purchase. However, this license costs just $10 annually. This amount of money is nowhere near enough to fund what's needed for enforcement, training, and education or compliance. In Georgia, there is not a minimum number of compliance checks that are done on these retailers, and just a sampling across the state happens every year. A minimum of 1 compliance check per year is important to curbing sales to youth. Data shows that 75% of kids who try to buy tobacco products are not refused, even though they are underage. Tobacco retail license and all it entails is essential for reducing youth usage. We appreciate the attention that is being brought to this youth vaping crisis. It was evident last week that each of you here, all the presenters, care and have concern. We recommend a multi-component, comprehensive public health approach with evidence-based policies and interventions. Now, we've talked about just a few today that have evidence and data to back each. Unfortunately, vaping registries, while well-intended, have no evidence on impacting youth initiation. It is hopeful to hear of your concern for our next generation because there are things you as legislators absolutely can do. We urge you to consider evidence-based solutions that have been shown to support the health and well-being of our youth and not the interest of tobacco companies. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question. You just said that you don't think directories have an impact on youth vaping, and I guess I don't understand that because if the point of a directory is to try to eliminate these Chinese disposable vaping products, which largely target youth, how would that not have an impact on curbing youth usage?
Well, the way the bill was written last year, it would allow those pending applications to be legally on the shelf, and that's a real concern.
Pending products that haven't been denied that had a PMTA before the date that allows them to be legally sold. But if you had a new product that was today and had a pending application, it couldn't be sold. So
the way we read it last year was the way the bill was written. It showed that those products could still be on the shelf if they had a pending application.
If they were pending from a certain date, which the FDA allows. I don't know what that is. All right, so we're okay. We're in good shape. We're in good shape. Vape alert out. Chairman Powell just told me I had a vaping alert in here. So, but the bill last year would allow PMTAs that were submitted. I don't have the date right in front of me, but I think it was 2016, 17. That the FDA has not denied those products would be legally allowed to be sold. But if you got applied today and had a pending application, it could not be sold.
We just also want to offer better solutions. So, we want less access, and we are offering and, would like to work with you on proven data-driven solutions.
Sure.
So.
I guess it's my opinion that if you eliminate the Chinese disposable vapes that have flavors and fruity flavors and all that stuff that clearly is targeting children, that would have an impact. I don't see how it wouldn't.
I mean, I think, too, it goes back to the access and the enforcement of retailers. If most youth are able to go into a store and buy an e-cigarette, this is not going to solve that problem. We've got other issues, and I do think it's well-intended, but to have the 34, you still have vapes on the shelves. You still have a menthol flavored, that's been approved, and there's 17,000 in the database. So the youth will still have access based on this registry.
Well, I guess my thought, and I know y'all are involved with this a lot, but it's not so much the menthol flavors; it's the chocolate and the strawberry and the the stuff that's just crazy, like the things we saw last week at the committee meeting. That's, in my opinion, what we have to eliminate, and in my opinion, is what is clearly targeting children.
And absolutely, and we can work with you on model language for a flavor restriction, and that is what that is, and that would be much clearer cut across the board to reduce youth access to flavors, which you're right, 87% of youth are using flavored tobacco products. So let's have a flavor restriction.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the conversation.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, we have a question. Maybe for y'all, I'm not sure.
it may be, if there's only a limited 30-something that have been approved and there's 1,000 out there, what is the time frame on a approval process, and when do they, if you're not going to approve it, if it's just going to be hanging out there, why do you not just X that one and move on?
Sure.
So there's not so many in limbo.
So we are going to be hearing from a couple folks that really know the FDA process here in a little bit, and that'd probably be a good question for them.
Thank you.
All right, we are going to move on to the Department of Revenue. Speaking of regulators, thank you all for being here. We have Austin, Lauren, and Jeremy, and we got y'all for about 20 minutes. Does that work?
Yes, sir.
Trying to keep us on time. And while they're setting up, I just want to make a quick announcement about next Tuesday's meeting. We may be changing the time and location, but we will get that to you by the end of today. But our goal is to keep the meeting on Tuesday. And there may be a fourth meeting. There's been so much discussion. Pretty interesting. So I'll also alert you of if there's a fourth meeting. Ready?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Chairman Gaines and members of the committee. My name is Austin Gibbons. I serve as our Director of External Affairs and Communications for the Georgia Department of Revenue. We've got several members of our team here today to answer some of your questions. So I've got Jeremy Thompson, our Assistant Director for Alcohol and Tobacco, Lauren Smith, our Senior Business Operations Manager. I also have Ryan Halleck from our Alcohol and Tobacco Division, as well as any legal questions can be answered by our General Counsel, Lorraine Hoffman-Polk, and I've got Joe Snowden, our Assistant Director of Legislative Affairs. So just wanted to quickly go over our agenda. I'm going to give you a quick year in review of the Alcohol and Tobacco Division for calendar year 2023. Then we're going to talk about licensing. We're going to talk about taxation. We will talk about enforcement. And then the two pieces of legislation that have recently come up was SB 375 in 2020, and of course House Bill 1260 from Chairman Gaines last session. So our 2023 year in review. Overall, the department's alcohol and tobacco division collected over $2.5 million in delinquent taxes, fees, and fines. They were staffed at 46 agents that year. They did 8,709 investigations, made 264 arrests, and did inspections that were referenced earlier, 12,621 of those, which led to 1,268 citations. Overall, the department collected $464 million in excise tax for alcohol and tobacco, and 51% of that was tobacco. So a high-level overview of our licensing. We have 8 licenses for tobacco at the department. So we have our in-state licenses for tobacco manufacturers, wholesalers, importers, retailers, and then special event permits. And our out-of-state licenses are for manufacturers, wholesalers, distributors, and importers. A license for tobacco also allows you to sell alternative nicotine products and vapor products. So they are attributes of the tobacco license, so you can choose to only sell vapor products, but you still receive a tobacco license. Wanted to focus on one license type specifically. Since we're talking about the selling of these products, we focused on our in-state retail license. So the initial application for that would be through the Georgia Tax Center. There is a $10 fee, as was referenced earlier, but there's also a supplemental $10 fee if you are adding vapor to that license, so a maximum of $20. And the forms that are required for this license are a local business license, a power of attorney, citizenship verification, and secure and verifiable documentation. So, of course, we also have annual renewals. There is up to the $20 fee for renewals as well. Those are through the Georgia Tax Center. We verify your account information, make sure nothing's changed. You answer questions about any arrests that might have happened over the last year, and assuming that everything checks out, you are renewed for the following year. There can be delays for certain instances where you might have changed your responsible party on your license, or you might have changed where the license location is, but generally speaking, those move pretty quickly and go to any person selling or distributing tobacco products in this state. A look at the numbers for our retail licensees. So as I said, tobacco, vape, and alternative nicotine are sales attributes of the tobacco license. So we have 10,052 licensees who sell all three, versus we have 5 who only sell alternative nicotine. And you'll see some other numbers up there for a grand total of 14,721 tobacco licensees for retail. As far as taxation, taxes are paid by the wholesalers upon sale to the retailers. If a retailer receives untaxed product, then they are deemed the distributor, and they do have to pay the excise tax. This is also done through the Georgia Tax Center, so all of this is 100% online. There's not a specific tax for alternative nicotine, but your payments are due, like I said, through GTC by the 10th of each month. Looking at tobacco taxation, and then we'll move on to vape taxation. Here are just the current rates for tobacco. So you have loose tobacco, that's your pipe, roll your own. It is 10% of the wholesale cost price, versus you go down to the bottom for cigarettes, and it's 37 cents for a pack of 20, 46 cents for a pack of 25, $3.70 or $4.50 for a carton, depending on how many are in that carton. For vape, our taxes are 5% or 5 cents per fluid milliliter for closed vapor, and then 7% of the wholesale cost price for single-use vapor and open vapor products. Moving into enforcement, in 2023, we talked earlier about having 46 agents. Generally speaking, we have around 45. 4 to 5 of these positions are funded by the FDA. I believe the Obama administration had some programs to cut down on underage tobacco sales and labeling, and so we have 4 to 5 employees who are funded partially through the FDA and focused solely on that. Overall, alcohol and tobacco has a $10.7 million budget. They do conduct undercover operations, as we talked about before, and we're always looking for folks who might be willing to serve as an undercover person for these checks. We do partner with DBHCD and the FDA fairly regularly, and one thing that's important to notice on the tobacco side is that due to the tobacco settlement in the early 2000s, the registry of tobacco products is with the Attorney General's office. We, of course, have consumer warnings that have to be posted at every retail location. This is part of our partnership with DBHCD, and you'll see that on the screen, and you should see that anywhere tobacco products are sold. Moving into the legislative side, so Senate Bill 375 was kind of the first major push towards regulating vape. We set forth some definitions in that bill for alternative nicotine products and their dealers, distributors, importers, and manufacturers, as well as vape products and their dealers, distributors, importers, and manufacturers. There were also definitions in that bill for open system, closed system, vapor device, and consumable vapor product. SB 375 also set the tax rates that we talked about a few slides ago for closed system, open system, and single use. It changed the tobacco legal age of purchase to 21 years and older, which matched some movement at the federal level. I believe during the Trump administration, it forbid vapor products in school safety zones. It allowed for separate or combined licensure at the discretion of the commissioner, and that what we ultimately chose to do is what we talked about previously, with vapor being an attribute of a tobacco license. There is not a vape-specific license. It set the framework for vape delivery to consumer, including fines of up to $500 and a 30-day delivery suspension if you deliver to somebody who is underage. And it allowed our special agents to inspect the premises of any licensed dealer or any vehicle used by a licensed dealer to make a delivery of these products. Moving forward to Chairman Gaines's House Bill 1260 from this session, just a quick overview. It created a directory at DOR for nicotine vapor products. It created a definition of nicotine vapor products. It would have required these products to be registered 12 months after the effective date of the bill. The bill was effective upon appropriation, so it is effective 12 months. It is effective upon appropriations. Then the registry has to be up 12 months after we get those appropriations, and then I believe that enforcement happens 6 months after that. So nicotine vapor products were on the registry if they were approved or pending with the FDA by the date that was mentioned earlier. There was an initial fee of $1,000 per product and $250 per product annually thereafter. The manufacturer would have had at least 15 days notice before any removal and 15 days to correct any deficiencies. And of course, we were allowed compliance checks, and the fines were based on the number of products that you were sold. There was a statutory framework in there for if you sold more and then we discovered that you were out of compliance, you would be fined more based on the number of products you sold. So some of the impact to DOR, obviously we are a enforcement agency that requires funding, and so we talked about kind of a roughly $1.8 million cost estimate to implement the bill as it was written last year. That was prior to the COLA that the governor and the General Assembly put in this past session, so this number probably would go up a little bit because of that. But our initial estimate, based on how the bill was written last year, was that our alcohol and tobacco division would need 11 new employees. IT with existing staff would take about 12 weeks of system development, and our Office of General Counsel would need to hire 2 attorneys to support alcohol and tobacco and to support the regulation of these vapor products. So, and again, it was $1.8 million overall, $600,000 setup costs, $1.2 ongoing. With that, we will take any questions from the committee, and of course, we've got enforcement and legal here for questions as well.
Any questions from the committee? and this may be a question for other speakers too, but could you talk a little bit about the closed versus open? And I think we're going to be hearing more about that at some point. But it'd be good to hear from the department on that too.
Did you want to know?
Because I know you've got different tax. Go ahead.
How is license, tax rate, and everything? Yeah, so we have different. Are you going to go back? Okay. Yes, so we have a chart. This chart is also on our website, and it goes over a little bit of what a closed vapor product is and what an open vapor product. So a closed vapor product is usually the pod, the cartridge, and we rate that, we tax it on 5 cents per milliliter. So it's usually the little pods that come with the vapor device or the cartridge that you put inside the vapor device. Then you have the open system. I kind of think of it as a e-liquid or e-juice. You can mix whatever liquid solution you want. That is 7% of the wholesale cost as far as the tax rate is concerned. And then the single-use vapor device is pretty much the complete unit. You have the device and the cartridge together instead of it being separate, and that is 7% of the wholesale cost. They do issue one license just for vapor products, but it's taxed as open, closed, and single use based on 375.
So on that wholesale cost price, I mean, if he's buying from one wholesaler and paying something, and I'm buying from a different, I pay a different rate than he does, or amount, I mean, same percent, but a different amount?
Probably, yes. It is dependent on the wholesale cost that you paid for from that particular wholesaler, but it is 7%. So if you did pay different amounts from the different wholesalers, the taxes would be slightly different.
Do you know this, and you may have said this, but on the underage undercover operation, do you have any sense of how many retailers or folks that get caught for that each year?
So out of the underage operations that we did last year, about 4,000 of those were for underage tobacco and underage vape combined. And out of those 4,000, we made about 300 purchases, a little over 300.
300 out of 4,000, you said?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And 4,000, is that, how many total retailers are there in the state?
We have got about 18,000 licensed retailers that are licensed for, or 14,000 licensed for
14,000
tobacco and vape.
Okay. And in order to sell the vape product, they would have to be one of those 14,000. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Okay.
And that is just for in-state. We do have out-of-state licenses as well.
Okay.
Yep.
So just asking, when y'all go, do you try and buy alcohol and vape, cigarette, all, or just one product, or what?
So we keep everything totally separate. When we do the alcohol operations, we stick strictly to alcohol, and then same for tobacco and vape. We keep everything totally separate.
How do, one of the things that I've learned on this vaping issue is you can just go online and buy it, is kind of my understanding. How does that work from y'all's perspective? I mean, I don't think it's legal. Am I correct, or how does that work from your end?
So the retail license will allow home delivery and that kind of thing. After the 375 passed and made some allowances for that.
If somebody's though selling something that they don't, if they're using an illegal online website, I mean, do y'all have any enforcement over that or no?
That's a tough one. If they're in state, it's a lot easier for us to take enforcement action on. But if we do pick up on things out of state, there's a lot more layers there. It's a lot more complex. So we do take action on people selling illegal or selling without a license, be it retail or online. But the in-state ones are a lot easier for us to actually enforce.
So you have enforced some online illegal sales or?
So to date, our enforcement on that has consisted of cease and desist letters that we've sent.
Okay. Representative Hughley, I think you're 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you tell me how our taxing structure for vape products compares with that of other states, particularly in this region?
I wish I could. I'm sorry. I don't know what other states are doing as far as vape goes. I can tell you that we're pretty similar as far as breaking down open, closed, disposable systems and that kind of thing. But what their actual rates are in other states, I don't know. I'm sorry. Do you know, perchance? No, I'm sorry. But we can find that out for you.
Thank you. One other question. With the number and variety of forms that these products can appear in, are you confident that you have a handle on all of them that are here and available in our state and going through our systems, or what should we be concerned about that?
That is something that's the landscape changes on that, almost day to day, week to week. I can tell you that we are putting forth our best effort on that. We to touch on our underage efforts. One thing we do is we make sure and do something in every county in the state. Right, we try to touch everywhere. We work with our local law enforcement partners, school resource officers, and that sort of thing. So we're trying, but it is evolving rapidly.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
On the 4,000 checks that you did, is that 4,000 different retailers, or do you return, or any of those return?
Those would primarily be separate retailers. And if we receive additional complaints, or if we have somebody that maybe that wasn't their first violation, some of those, a small percentage of those, will be a revisit.
So if I'm doing math right, basically, obviously you don't tell them when they're coming, but approximately every 3 years you can hit about everybody.
That's correct. That's our cycle, is about every 3 years.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Thanks for what y'all do. All right, Jimmy Higginbotham, Locust Grove Police Department Head of Security, School Resource Officer at Strong Rock Christian School. We had several school resource officers who joined us, in particular from Gwinnett last week, and certainly their testimony was quite interesting on how often they are seeing this in their schools. And Jimmy, thank you for being here, and thank you for what you do every single day.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Gaines. Thank you, committee members, for having me today. I've been in law enforcement now 30 years. I've been a school resource officer for 18 years. This is watching what has taken place with the vape issues through our schools and how it skyrocketed to a point has been quite amazing. The mere fact that the students are able to sneak it in, bring it in, educating parents on what a vape looks like is going to be a major thing that's going to help us out. There are some of the vapes that look like a USB drive. It looks like a flash drive. And so the students are able to hide it from the parents, or the parents just don't know what it looks like. Oh, it's my flash drive for school. I use it for this. And it looks like it. They don't question. They don't look. With my school particularly, we had a huge influx about 4 years ago, had a major problem with it. Last year, we had 2 incidences for all of our school year. Now, part of that is we took a headstrong approach to letting our students know if we catch you, we're going to deal with the issue. My brother-in-law is the director in safety coordinator for a very prominent private school north of Atlanta. I have spoke with the safety director of a private school in Metro Atlanta that's right by the airport, and they all have different ways of handling it. The one that's right by the airport, if you get caught with vapes, you are expelled. You go before a disciplinary panel, and you're expelled. They said our easiest way to deal with it is to not deal with it, and that if you get caught with it, you're not going to be at our school. For us, one of the things that we do is it's an approach that looks at how severe or the other issues that you've had with our school. If you are a student who continues to bring on problems and this is an additional problem, it may be time for us to part ways, that this is not something where we can partner with you in the education that we provide for you and your student. But it's one of those where students don't understand the effects that nicotine and the vapes are having on their young bodies. And so we've had students that have been extremely sick from it, and we've had students that have had no problems with it. We do everything that we can to educate our students and our faculty and our staff to look for it so that when we find it, it's taken care of. It's been amazing to me talking to the different districts about the issues that are going on. When I talk to the county that I live in, and I talk to the school resource officers that are over the Henry County Department, they said that their issues that they're having are just with the THC ones, not the nicotine ones. But their numbers have gone down. I have a niece that attends a public school in North Fulton County. It's a huge issue there. When I talk to her, she goes, it's in every school. What they do is they come in and out so quick that they come in, use the vape, walk out when somebody else is walking in. That way they don't get detected and they don't get caught. And there's a traffic issue that hides their use. I appreciate what y'all are doing to help curb this issue. If there's anything that I can do, I'd be more than happy to help.
Thank you for being here, Representative Hughley.
Thank you. Thank you so much for what you do. Can you elaborate on the type of education that you all are providing to your students and parents as you go through your regulatory framework?
What we have done in the past is we have had the Sheriff's Department come in and use their drug education program, similar to a DARE program or the CHAMPS program, to speak with our students and to speak with our teachers and our parents.
Okay.
And we are going to be hearing from the CHAMPS program in this meeting here in a little bit as well.
Okay.
Any other questions from the committee? Well, to echo Representative Hughley, thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Beverly, do you want to speak or no? All right, I'm going to call up a school board member from my area, Beverly Kelly, who's a good friend, and she called me last night and said she was going to be here. So thank you for being here, and also our prayers continue for Barrow County and all the school system in our area and all the folks that have been impacted by the terrible tragedy that happened last week. Certainly many heroes out of a just terrible situation. So thank you for being here, Beverly, and look forward to your comments.
Yeah. Well, as you can imagine, I didn't have our people pull any information together when I found out about the thing, because we're kind of tied up now with a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, vapes has been a big thing, even in our middle schools. And we have 3 board members every month that we just pick 3 random schools. We used to, when we were a smaller district, we could go out to every school every month. But 3 board members with our director of facilities and a crew go out to 3 schools every month, and we do what's called clean and safe schools, to where we go in and we can look, make sure those doors are locked, look and see what's going on and talk to our people. And back in April or May, this last school year, but this calendar year, we were talking to the people in our clinic at one of our high schools. And they said, we could keep a full-time 1 or 2 paramedics up here because they're having to call them 1 to 2 times a day because of kids that are texting each other, going into the bathrooms where they'll meet each other. They may be different classes, and so they say they need to go to the bathroom. The teacher says, okay, and they'll meet up in there and they'll vape. And then you find out that they have a heart murmur or a heart problem or a medical issue that they don't know until they do that. You never know what's in those vapes. And so it becomes, a medical issue, and we're having to call the paramedics to come get those children. So it just creates a whole problem. The other issue that it creates is you may have it turn into an altercation in the bathroom where they get in a fight. So now our administrators are pulled from what they need to be doing and having to go break up a fight. So it creates a whole bunch of other issues. Trying to educate the parents on what they look like, that's another thing. One of the things that we like to see is more legislation, not just letting these kids go up. Try and have an age minimum. And if parents are getting these vapes for their children, buying them for their children because of the health and the medical risk to them, holding those parents accountable. The school district can only do so much. Like that school that happened to last week, my kids graduated from that school. My husband and I have been partners in ed, mentors. We have spent more hours at that school than we did at the schools we grew up on. And all 3 of my kids kept calling me and saying, Mama, that's home. And that's home. Those kids in that building, those are my kids. That's my family. And we love our kids. We want to keep our kids safe. In our district, we all feel that way. That's family. We want to keep our kids safe. And not, this is my 14th year on the school board. I was on for 8. I was off for 12. I was cold. Saying, Miss Kelly, we're going to have so many new board members. We're going to need experience. Would you mind coming back on? I said, I love my community. Yeah, I'll do it. 3 months into my new term, after being off for 12 years, COVID hit. And the joke was, do I love my community that much? Of course I do. I love Barrow County. I love our students. And I want to protect them. But not any board member or superintendent I have ever worked with has ever spared a penny, has ever batted an eye to spend money and keep our kids safe. And what I've always said is, it's all the taxpayers' money. It just depends on what pot it comes out of. And we've got to work together and get to know our legislators and our people of the federal government and have a good working relationship with them. But we have got to do what we can to keep our kids safe and to educate our parents, but to hold parents accountable for knowing what their kids are up to and what their kids are doing. And we've got to do that. We've got to keep our kids safe because they are our future. And so that's just what I have right now to let you know.
Hey, amen. Thank you. Representative Hughley had a question for you, if that's okay.
First of all, let me say thank you for what you do. My sister-in-law is a school board member, and I inadvertently get some of her calls, and her calls are tougher than our calls, so I can tell you that. So thank you for what you do, and of course our hearts go out to all of the parents and students in Barrow County. But you tell me more about this Clean and Safe Schools program that you all are doing.
What we do is we have 3 board members that go out. We go out with our superintendent of facilities and our safety guy, our head safety guy, and we also use Premier Cleaning, and he goes with us, and one of our other head guys that's over, just facilities goes with us, and we get in 2 vehicles and we will go out to the 3 schools. We'll just randomly pick 3 schools